Good afternoon. We're sitting here this afternoon with Mr. Jerry Berg from Intek Cleaning and Restoration. He has been in business for 36 years, and he has been a very active member of part of the Sioux Falls Home Builders, along with, I'm sure, the Chamber of Commerce and many other organizations. Intek is known throughout our area as a company that takes care of a lot of things. And so, welcome, good afternoon.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us a little bit. I think, one of the things that we're trying to put out there is a little bit of content related to not only the coronavirus, in reference to the pandemic and things that people have concerns with, but also, we deal with a lot of buyers and sellers and what are some of the things that they should be considering. But top of mind, our first subject, obviously, because it's the biggest thing out there in headlines, is the coronavirus, and how is this obviously has had a big effect on your business, along with what are some of the things that you're doing to help people, give them a peace of mind.
Well, the effect it's had on our business is that we have a large janitorial staff, and a lot of people have sent their employees home to work from home, which means less cleaning. So we've lessened the load there, still trying to keep everybody busy and keep them on the payroll, and having them in place when the businesses comes back, because I don't believe everybody's still going to stay at home. They need that camaraderie to get back in to get the operation up and running again. So that being said, we're still there. Now what we've done besides what we're doing, we've been deep cleaning for them, even though over the time there's not very many people walking through the facilities, but we've been deep cleaning, hand cleaning, and we have a product called SteriMist, which is used widely in a lot of different scenarios. Yep. That would be one of them. Cubicle cleaning. I'll touch on what SteriMist is. It's a 7.8% solution of hydrogen peroxide suspended in water. It's shot through a cold arc, which is like a welder's arc. And as this mist goes through there, it radicalizes the hydrogen peroxide molecule and it makes all negative. There's not a positive and negative side on the molecular structure of the hydrogen peroxide molecule. So it's all negative, and so then it spreads it out evenly. And not only does it spread it out evenly, but it covers every aspect of the whatever we're spraying. In other words, the table we're sitting at, if I was doing it, I would do the proper back and forth movement on the top, and as I would go underneath, it would totally cover the underside. I wouldn't have to spray it on there, just because the structure of this hydrogen peroxide molecule makes it want to cling to everything.
So it sounds like it spreads. Even though you're spraying it, it automatically on its own, because of what you do to it going through that arc.
Right.
It actually allows it to just spread out like a blanket over everything it touches.
And so as long as I don't let it puddle, which it would do, because it then becomes ineffective, so you keep your arm moving, you spray everything. So we'd spray all the chairs, tables, all the pieces in this room, and when we were done, the product by itself has a 6-log kill, which is 99.9999. Most of what you buy in the store is like a 3-log kill, 99.9, which is quite effective, so I'm not putting any of that stuff down.
But that extra few nines really make a difference.
Oh,
right?
it gets in all the cracks and crevices, yeah. And it was originally put together by a government think tank to go after anthrax back in 2001. Eventually it reached the public, yep. And then eventually the investment group that sold it to the association that I belong to, and then I bought into it. Yep. And highly effective as far as hospitals and clinics and any health care, any senior living.
So that brings me my question is that with the SteriMist, are you doing, what percentages are you doing residential versus commercial?
Well, we're probably 90% commercial and 10% residential. And in the residential setting, people moving into houses.
There you go. That was one of the things where we work with so many buyers and sellers, where people want to know what can we do just to have that peace of mind.
So there's a huge concern on the buyer's side that the house be clean. So we go in and we can deep clean, including carpets, even if you can even if you look at them and they look to have been cleaned recently, it wouldn't hurt to, double up on that. We clean furnaces. We do just a general clean of the whole house, and then we Steramist it, and we can pretty much guarantee that it's, 100% clean. There's no bacteria. Anything that we touch or have sprayed is done. It's dead.
Well, that's a big peace of mind, especially for people with small children. I mean, not that we as adults don't have to be concerned, but if you got somebody who is in that category of being like in that group that it could potentially be a problem or a hazard for them, even it's a peace of mind for them along with young children.
And as a person lists their home, this becomes a selling point to say that we had Intek in there, and they not only cleaned all the carpets, they did a deep clean and they Sterimisted the place.
Yeah.
So now the prospective buyer's going, well, that's pretty cool.
That is cool. I mean, that is, and then I think the other thing that I know that a lot of times when we're having conversations with people is about cleaning the ducts. I mean, that's the other thing that you do. Along with carpets and doing just general cleaning, but duct cleaning I think is a huge part of people.
Most houses, and I don't know the percentage, but it's like 25 or 30% of all houses have ever had their ducts cleaned. And once they've had them cleaned, you can go into a house and know that they've been cleaned at some point in the past, just because of the paraphernalia you see on the duct work. And so pretty much full-time duct cleaning. We have 2 crews out, and they clean each of them 2 a day, sometimes 3. And so it makes all the difference in the world, the amount of dirt and debris and pop cans. And we've found diamond rings, we've found the skeletal remains of hamsters, we've found everything under the sun in ductwork. And it's just amazing. And the other thing that it does is certainly we're going to raise dust, and so immediately upon us being out of there, it might be a little dusty, but it's going to be a lot less once the furnace kicks back in.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that we do after that is to clean the carpet. So those are 2 of the major surfaces. And third, if a person wanted to go this far, would be to have I've got 15 or 20 gals that go out and clean.
So the cleaning crews to follow up after that, and then you're really covering all
it's a sequential thing.
Right.
And then last but not least, we Steramist it. So all for the peace of mind of either the buyer or the seller.
Well, and I think that we're in the world we're in. I mean, I don't know, when we talk about this new normal, maybe this is part of the new normal where here's some of the steps that we may have to consider depending on the individual and what their level of feeling comfortable, is that we have to do. And so I know that I was on some of your social media, and I was looking at your Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, and your website. There's a lot of really good information that people can, tap into when it comes to if they have some questions. And we'll tag on this video. We'll make sure that we tag that so that way people can just click on it and go.
Okay.
But, that part is great. But I know that this is just like a little snapshot of what Intek can do for a homeowner, like a home buyer or home seller type of thing.
Right.
And then I know commercially is a huge aspect of your business, but also the other thing I just wanted to say was I remember a year ago was when you were just buried with phone calls from, we had that rain, and in the meantime, I think I had one of my clients that called me and asked me if I could come over and help them. Because when they called, they said that they'd already were like number 300 on the list, which I totally understand because there was thousands of people that were.
Everybody was looking for somebody, and so we had all hands on deck. Every basement in town that had a window well, the water pooled in their backyard because of the snowpack, and was the only place it could go is in the window well or the sump pump, and it was everything we could do. I brought in a couple of buddies of mine from Chicago with their crews, and they came in and worked on quite a number of projects. And our standard spiel when we get to the end of our what we can handle is to call around and get on everybody's list, and the first one there will take care of you. And now the backside of that is there's several things that go on, just briefly. One is, depending on how wet your basement is, not only do we extract it, maybe pull the carpet, set up drying equipment, but we may have to pull the trim, and there's a madness to saving trim, so you got to know what you're doing there. So you get the trim pulled off and set in place where it can dry properly, and then you start cutting the sheetrock so you can and pull, you know.
It's a process. I mean, it's not like
Pulling all
it's
the
not just walking in and
insulation.
sucking up the water. It's like you having to cut the sheetrock up a minimum of 24 inches, sometimes higher, depending on how long the water,
Exactly.
how high the water got. And then you also, the next step is now you got to worry about mold, because even though they made a call, it didn't get dealt with right away. And after how many hours before mold starts to set in?
72.
Yeah, so it doesn't. So that's the other thing, because once mold gets in place, now you've got to talk about mold remediation.
Mold needs moisture, a food source, the right temperature, and it likes to grow in the dark best.
Yeah.
And so sheetrock is the best food source. We live in the 68 to 86 range that it grows the best in. Mm-hmm. And then obviously there's darkness there. And so if you don't get after it right away, so the backside of all this, two things. One would be putting it back together. Conceivably, we can mitigate many more than we can put back together in any kind of time frame. And so consequently, we're busy up to 6 months, 8 months later trying to get people's basements back in place.
Sure.
The other thing is the ones that didn't get somebody and took care of it themselves and did not get it dried properly. We were over there later, or somebody was, doing a mold remediation where you put up plastic barriers and put your guys in hazmat suits, and they go in and then they cut out all your mold and insulation. And I mean, so it's you need to do it. You can't wait.
Well, and I think that's the point with mold that people have to understand, is if they have a lot of mold, it's hazardous to the individual. I mean, you start trying to wipe that up, clean that up, and you make that airborne. You start breathing it, and it can have a definite effect.
It's an irritant, and eventually becomes something that'll make you sick if you're not careful.
Right. Yeah. Well, I know that there's this list of all the things that you do: my floor cleaning, janitorial services, the commercial, the mold, the fire damage and restoration. That's another thing that you're known for.
Huge.
You
huge.
do a lot of that because it's people need something done and they need it now.
And fires coming all from a little stovetop fire. You melted the baby bottle that you were supposed to be watching. Yeah. To a full-fledged fire that burns up a cabinet, to a fire that gets into the attic, to a fire that burns half the house down.
And you get that smoke smell. That's hard to you have to somehow you have to use like ozone machines and that sort of thing to try to break that smoke smell down, along with wiping surfaces down and that sort of thing. Right?
And there's a number of ways to break down the molecular structure of smoke, and so it's and depending on the nature of the fire, it's a tedious process. And you got to follow the process to get to the end. So it's not like you can shortcut it.
No shortcuts and no quickie things. So
another thing we do is whether it's flood, tornado, or fires, we have a it's called an Ozone machine, and it will clean up to 160 pounds of laundry at one time. And so we have a laundry room with 275-pound dryers and a drying room, so it'll clean shoes, it'll clean clothes, all the soft goods. We've cleaned saddles in it, hockey gear, football gear.
Yeah, I seen that on your website where it talks about one of them is hockey equipment cleaning, and I had to ask you about that, and because I was like, but that makes sense. Staph infection's so hard to get rid of, and this is one way to eliminate that staph, so that way people that are wearing that equipment or that are handling that equipment don't get staph.
So between the methodology, which would include up to 5 washes, different products put in the wash, chemicals if you will, to the heat of the dryers, when we're done, any of your clothes are food grade clean.
Right.
And we have devices to measure that, to show you how much bacteria might, the dirtiest thing that a guy carries or a person carries around is their cell phone.
That's true.
And really is true. We can show you how clean everything is when we're done, which then kind of equates back to the house. Once you've had some issue, mold or otherwise. We get in there and we clean it all up, and one of the things we've used over the past 4 years that totally removes the last of the floating mold spores is we steramist everything, and it is very effective on mold. Now there's viable and non-viable mold. Viable mold is the live mold. And non-viable mold, you can still track non-viable mold, but you can't kill dead mold. So, you know, the spores are on the floor or wherever they might be, so that's why you clean it all.
Well, and I know that the other thing that you will do is if someone suspects that they have mold, if they call you, you have people that will come out and identify whether it is or isn't, or if it's viable or non-viable mold also, because I know that's the other part where...
We don't do the testing ourselves. We feel that's a conflict of interest. So we'll call one of 2 or 3 labs in town. They'll come out and test. I mean, we first came out and did a free inspection. Yes, you have mold. They come out and test and tell you what kind of mold it is, and they will then write a spec sheet on how to approach it, which we follow. And then when we're done, we have them come back out and test it again. And occasionally, not often, since we've been using SteraMist, it's been virtually 0%. But occasionally you run into a situation where the mold is in a cavity and you're not tearing that cavity out, but it still's got an airflow through there, and somehow it's getting out in the environment, which would mean then we got to re-clean and reestablish where it's coming from. So, but when we're done, there's no mold.
Yeah, no, and I think then you're, not only do you have the small spots, the corners, that sort of thing, but now we're back to like the furnace vents and that sort of thing, where if you have any of that in there, and every time the furnace kicks on or AC kicks
blows
on,
it around,
you're kicking that out. So I mean, I make the argument all the time with my clients. I'm like, it's well worth whatever it is cost to have those cleaned, because you'll be much healthier and you'll feel much better about it, and you won't. It eliminates that stale smell in some homes. Most
it does.
Time, you know. So, but well, I think what we'll do is you offered to let us go out and take some pictures of like the SteraMist machine and your hockey cleaning machine, and we'll take some pictures of that. Maybe we can pepper that in along with this video.
That'd be great.
But again, I mean, we just scratched the surface. But I just know that, you know, you've been in the business for 36 years, and you've had this reputation for somebody who really, you guys take care of people. The end result is exactly what people are looking for. Plus, when you have an insurance claim that, you know, where there is mold or there is water problems, the plus part about it, knowing that Intek took care of it, is the fact that the next owner has a peace of mind.
Right.
You know,
it's top of mind awareness as far as a brand name, and and it's taken me, like you said, 36 years to establish a brand. And the other thing is, I'm only as good as my weakest link, and you're constantly working with your employees and training them and trying to bring them all up to a certain level of perfection, and just trying to stay with the customer. On occasion, you lose a customer. That's
just the nature. I mean, when we're out doing business, you can't be everything to everyone. But
no.
As long as you'd make a sincere attempt to make that happen, and I think for being in business for 36 years kind of speaks for itself in reference to, obviously you're doing a lot of things right.
Right.
So, Jerry, thank you so much for taking the time today, and we'll make sure that we get some of this information out, and just let people know that they can reach out to your company at any time and ask questions.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.